Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I'm super excited about my guest because she has such an amazing story of transformation, and I cannot wait till what she shares and all the things. Tiffaney Childers is an author, she's a speaker, and she is a suicide loss advocate whose new book, The Rise Back, Reclaiming Life After Suicide Loss, Pain, and Silence, just came out on October 30th. After losing both of her parents to suicide just 1 year and 5 days apart, and then later facing permanent chronic pain from a routine surgery, she knows firsthand what it means to hit rock bottom. Today, she serves with the loss team, showing up within minutes to support families in the immediate aftermath of suicide, and she is the creator of the Rise Up Method, which is a practical framework for reclaiming life with courage and purpose. Her work reminds others that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can choose how we rise back. Through her writing, speaking, and advocacy, her mission is clear: to break silence, shatter stigma, and prove that even in the darkest moments, transformation is possible. Thank you, Tiffaney, for just being a guest today. And what a powerful, just reading all of that, oh my gosh, what you have been through. So thank you today for being a guest.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here. It's always an honor to be on a podcast.
I love that. I just like reading through all of that. Kind of just take us to where you feel comfortable in and starting on how your journey was back then and how you came to be the person that you are today and all the things you've created.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So this has been about 18 years ago. I lost my mother to suicide, and then 1 year and 5 days later, I lost my father also to suicide. So it pretty much changed the trajectory of my life. I didn't even know it at the time how much it would change, but it did. I pretty much went into survival mode. I had 2 young kids. I was married. It's, navigating a marriage, work, kids. I think the kids were 3 and 5 at the time. And then when my dad passed, they were 4 and 6. So, you're just running around, getting them to school, doing activities after school. I mean, I really didn't have time to grieve. And there was nothing back then like we have now. There were just no support groups. There was no classes. There was, there was therapy, but even back then, there wasn't the kind of therapy that we have now, like the trauma-informed therapy. So I just shoved everything down, and believe it or not, most people who lose a loved one to suicide tend to self-medicate in some way. So, drinking became a part of shoving it down, numbing things out. And that it really didn't come on until a little bit later in the whole grieving process. But yeah, so survivors are 7 times more likely to die by suicide themselves, which is just a tragic statistics. So during the whole messy middle of the whole 18 years, I raised kids, I worked, I maintained my marriage, and never healed. I convinced myself I healed, but I never healed. Never did the work at all. Never put in the work. And then about a year ago, I ended up having a hip surgery. I had a torn labrum, so I had a labral tear repair, and it was unsuccessful, which sometimes it is. So they could never get a stitch in, and I ended up with what's called chronic regional pain syndrome. So that is, it's incurable, and it is chronic pain in my right foot. It's nerve pain, nerve damage. So, needless to say, I hit rock bottom. But the great thing that came out of it was I don't drink anymore at all whatsoever. So that was one blessing in disguise out of the whole thing. So I had to pick myself up. I hit rock bottom, and I had to pick myself up and figure out, where do I go from here? The pain was so intense. A lot of it was emotional pain that I believe turned physical in my body. And when you shove things down for years and years and years, I promise you they will find a way out. And that's pretty much what it did. So decided to write a book. I'm super grateful and honored that I can get this book out into the world about recovering from suicide loss, pain, silence. The stigma around suicide loss, you just don't talk about it. So about 5 years ago, I started on a team. It's called the LOSS team, LOSS. It's a local outreach to suicide survivors. So the law enforcement notifies us within 15 minutes of a suicide call, and we go on scene to these calls, and we help the loved ones left behind navigate the worst day of their life. We bring in how to write an obituary. We bring a whole binder full of information, pretty much how to write an obituary. Most people, don't know how to do that. I mean, you can research it after you need to, but how to tell others about the loss and terminology and what to use, how to tell children about the loss and what kind of terminology you can use depending on the various ages. Our local support groups, we have 3 going on right now. Any kind of counseling they need, we help pay for. If there's scene restoration that they need immediately, we have contracts with a couple of companies here in town, and we do scene restoration. So the family does not have to lift a finger and do anything. And we are just there to support. We don't judge. We don't give advice. We just say, hey, I've been there, done that. What do you need? What can I do to help you? And it might be something like, can you let the dogs out? The dogs are going crazy barking because the law enforcement's there. The neighbors are out looking, everything is insane, crazy. Or, I've held hair back while somebody's vomiting. I've given them wet washcloths to put on their forehead. I've talked to them. I've held babies, fed babies. Got talked to the kiddos and got them kind of out of the chaos. We're a liaison between the police officers and the family. A lot of times the suicide mimics a murder until the police officers investigate it. So we give them time to investigate, do their stuff, and just kind of keep, the bridge open between a bridge of communication open between them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had a few questions about the LOSS team. Is that something that's just in your area? Because you are in Texas. Is it just in Texas, or is it throughout? Oh, okay.
It's nationwide. It's nationwide, and you can go to lossteam.com and see if there is one in your area. It's normally in the bigger metroplexes, but they do reach out to all the rural counties and surrounding counties as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And we are not a huge a huge metroplex in Amarillo, Texas, believe me, but we do reach out to all the little surrounding counties as well. And if we can't go on scene, then we will do a delayed call and we will talk to the family and tell them what all we have available as far as,
wow,
groups and stuff like that. So, and we'll mail them all the information. So we can always do delayed calls, but it is nationwide. In fact, I just got back from the huge conference for the Lost team in Omaha, Nebraska. And that was incredible and just a wealth of information.
Can I go back to when you said 18 years ago, it was your mom first and then your dad. Did your mom deal with any type of mental health issues or anything that you ever thought that this would happen? Depression, anything like that?
She did. And I always say people with a mental, and I don't even like to use the term illness, that kind of just is so clinical. Anybody with mental health issues, not everybody with mental health issues dies by suicide, and not everybody who dies by suicide has mental health issues.
Right.
So hers, I believe, of course, there's so many whys and then so many what ifs and questions, but she had a lot of surgeries and struggles with things. And back then, this was early 2000s, the doctors just gave her a plethora of pain pills, Valium, anything that was out on the market. And I'm a huge advocate for you have to know what you're putting in your body because it can change your brain chemistry. And so I think that was a lot of hers. And she thought she was a burden, and it just changed the brain chemistry. And I don't know for sure, but that's what I think. Now with my dad, no, it was a complete shock, just a complete shock. And they weren't married. And I always like to say that they weren't married at the time, and they hadn't been married, since I was 2 years old. And so I was in my early 30s when this happened.
Wow.
So it was just, but I was so close to both of them. They lived, right here in the same town I do. So.
I can relate to. I have a loved one who, and I understand the mental health or mental. I always call it mental wellness as much as I can.
Yes.
Because I think it's a better terminology. But I have a loved one who was on what they call going through a lot, and they kept giving him different medications, and at one time I think 11 to 13 medications, and you don't even you feel like you're outside your body. You're not knowing, and they had attempted suicide, but luckily I was able to get them help. By the way that they did it, it was something that you could still get help for, or they attempted and put them in the hospital and all those things like that. So I can relate to how they now they won't take any medication. They'd rather be in so much pain unless they absolutely have to. Reads ingredients for everything, watches everything because of how affected they felt when they were on medication. They didn't feel like they were themselves. They were totally outside their body, didn't know what was right or left, and things like that. So I can understand what I could imagine your mom was going through with all the things that she had on, the pain and all the things. And I deal with chronic pain, and they always just want to medicate. They always want to medicate instead of let's figure out why I have this pain. Why can't I get an MRI? Or why can't it's just, we'll just put you on meds or we'll give you pain management. I don't want that. I want to know why I am constantly in this pain. So.
Yeah. In fact, I went to a pain doctor here, and she said, I don't think you realize we don't get to the bottom of things here. We just help your pain. We just control your pain. And I thought, wow. So you just start doling out pain meds? Wow, it just shocked me that they said that they don't get to the bottom of things, because I didn't know what I had. I thought, okay, I had a hip surgery. Why do I have pain in my foot? This is bizarre. So, yeah, you have to be very, very careful of what you put in your body. I mean, it can help you with your depression, but it might also dull your spark and your joy. And I was just a zombie. Any medication they would put me on back then, I was just a zombie. I wasn't sad, I wasn't mad, but I wasn't glad or happy or joyful either. It'll dull your spark, and if one doesn't work, then they'll put you on another one, and then the combination of those two that's still in your system, it's tragic. And like I said, this was back in the early 2000s when, all of this was just really starting to come out. All the antidepressants were starting to be doled out, and the marketing they used. And I always say grief is not a mental illness. Grief is a natural occurring thing that happens in somebody's life. It's like love that's lost its landing place. Of course, yes, some people sometimes need to be medicated. Absolutely, just to help them get through that process. But it's not a mental health issue. Grief isn't. Grief is natural, and you have to go through the natural grieving process. And of course, I never did. I just shoved it down. So I didn't even go through the grieving process probably until about 5 years ago when I started on the loss team. And it was just bizarre. I'm like, what is this? Why does my heart hurt? Why is all this coming up right now? I just felt it in my body and thought, what is going on? And I was finally grieving my parents. I was empty nester. The kids had gone to college, and I just had to kind of sit with little old me and my thoughts and go through that grieving process again. And absolutely, yes, there's going to be a grieving process, but you cannot stay there. It's such a toxic place to sit, because trust me, I stayed there and I sat there and I sat in that little pity party, and I sat still in that grieving phase for far too long, until I had this hip surgery. And I thought, okay, there it is. All this emotional stuff that I had shoved down and stayed in this toxic place, it is coming out physically in my body. It was bizarre.
When did you start to become part of the law, or why did you start to become, as you said, 5 years ago, what made you decide to become a part of the loss team?
So they just started it in Amarillo, the loss team in Amarillo 5 years ago. And I just was watching the news one night, and this sweet little girl was on TV and said, hey, if you've ever had a suicide loss, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love for you to volunteer. And I did, and it was the best thing I ever did. I got around people that had been there, that done that. They've also had a loss. And I felt like I was heard, like I was seen, like I was part of this community that only we spoke, because we'd all had a loss. So when we go on a call, we have two people that go. We have a mental health professional that goes, and then we have a survivor like me, a suicide survivor like me. And so that way you have somebody that's been there, done that. I've been right in your shoes. I've walked in your shoes. And then we also have a mental health professional to kind of guide if they see anything going south or anything, and give us the clinical side of things. And it's a fabulous combination.
I think that's amazing. Like I said, today is the first I've heard of it, so I think it's really amazing. I'm actually going to look some of that up to see what resources are available.
Yes.
I've had a few people on my podcast before. One of them lost her grandma, and then her mom within like days of each other.
That's the podcast that I listened to. Yes. And in fact, I think I said something on my Instagram about it. So yes, I remember listening to that. Yep.
And as that particular individual, my guest, she's also from lives in Texas now too, and stuff. But I had another one, and I think you know her, Kim Witzak.
Yes.
Where her husband also, because of
yes.
we think medication and how she turned that into an advocacy. But one of the things I think I want to also say to you is congratulations on the sobriety, because the person that I was talking about earlier, my loved one who was on all these things, would numb their pain, or drink to kind of numb their pain, because you just become numb. Mm-hmm. And eventually they decided no medication, alcohol free, now almost 11 years, or almost 12 years. So I think that's what a journey that has been for you. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. And I know back in the early 2000s, I had lost a child at 5 months of pregnancy. And that was hard, and there was nothing to help. And I was kind of like, I just went through the pain. I just kept going until I collapsed at work one day, and then I had to force, but then I kept doing all the things, it took me a long time to kind of heal from that journey. And I'm still healing. That's actually the day that I launched my first episode of this podcast, was to honor that child that I had lost. It would have been their 22nd birthday coming back.
I love that.
I would love to know about your Rise Up method, your trademark method, and what you do with that method and how you help others.
Yes. So, like I said, after this hip surgery, I was at the lowest of lows. And this was it was October 3rd last year. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I can't move this foot. I can't walk on it. I can't do anything. I was just struggling in this bout of depression. And of course, everything that they try to put you on, gabapentin, Lyrica, all the things, it just made me, I couldn't take them. The side effects were too much for me. It made me, like you had said earlier, feel outside of my body, like I'm over here looking inside my life. So I came up with the Rise Up method, and it's the R is reach out before you shut down. And that's such an important part of this. You have to reach out to somebody. And as strong as we think we are, and as independent as we think we are, and the pride thing, we have to reach out. We've got to reach out to someone, anyone, a friend, a trusted loved one, a therapist, anything, a boss. You just have to reach out before you shut down. And so the I, excuse me, is ink it out. And that, it's journaling. You have to get your thoughts outside of your body, and you have to put them on paper. And I thought that was so dumb for years and years and years. I thought it was little girls with glitter pens and puff pens that are, journaling. I had to really start getting all of my feelings out on paper and get them out of my body, because they were just sitting there with no place to go. So that is important. And so, excuse me. So the S is you have to sit with it. And I promise you, this will be the loneliest part of this whole entire thing. You have to sit with all those emotions, and you have to process all of those emotions. And especially, when I quit drinking, I was just left with all of this raw emotions that I hadn't sat with ever, because I would just go self-medicate and shove them down. So that S is sit with it. The E is embrace who you're becoming, because you're not going to be the same person that you used to be ever. And that is the wonderful part of this whole thing, is you are never going to be who you used to be. Thank goodness that we get to move forward and we don't ever have to look back. And we can look back and we can see how far we've come. So the U is unlearn all the lies. Your brain tells you so many lies, especially after a suicide loss. And I always say, liar, liar, brain on fire. It tells you should have known, if you would have just called them sooner, if you would have shown up sooner. You have to unlearn all of those lies, and you just have to get rid of the lies. And the P for the Rise Up method is the last one, and it's protect your peace. And this one is almost as important as reach out before you shut down. You have to protect your peace. Not everybody deserves access to your healing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to leave those old friendships and those old things behind that kept you stuck in this safe little comfort zone. So you have to protect your peace. Not everybody deserves access to you until you are ready. But yeah, getting out of your comfort zone and stepping into the unknown is scary. Very scary.
I love that. When it takes me back to a time back in when I was going through some hard times. I seen a therapist, and she said, "I want you to write every day." And I'm like, "Write? What's writing going to do?" Oh my goodness, she couldn't prescribe the type of therapist that I was going to. It was through work, and so she couldn't prescribe medications, and so. Which was awesome. I wasn't going for medication, because that actually helped me get through some of the things. And I find that when I am going through my hardest, I'm like, what am I missing? I need to write it out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I just lock those journals up because they're, but I just write it out.
The key.
Yeah. The other day I woke up and there was just something on my mind and I just started writing. And then before I knew it, I was writing 7 pages worth of stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened with my book. I mean, I just started writing and I was like, wow, I'm writing a book and I'm going to publish it. And I think that's the most vulnerable thing that I have ever done in my entire life, because a lot of people didn't know I lost both my parents. I never talked about it. The stigma attached to it, I just didn't talk about it. I don't meet somebody new. Hi, my name is Tiffaney. I lost both my parents to suicide. So you just don't talk about it. I always talk about the shame and the stigma that goes along with it. Like when someone dies of a heart attack, we don't say, well, gosh, I wish they shouldn't have smoked for 20 years or ate McDonald's for 30 years. We celebrate them and talk about memories at the funeral, whereas if someone dies by suicide, oh God, why did they do that? Why would they do this to their family? Why wouldn't they get help? There's such a stigma that goes on, and both of those things deserve our grace. Hopelessness is just as bad as heart disease or anything else. It still deserves our grace. Both of those things do. So that's why I decided I've got to talk about it. I've got to break the silence. And it's still so hard. And it's something a lot of people don't want to talk about. It's heavy. It's a very heavy subject.
As you go through and you have now talked about it, how has your life changed for your family? Like, what did you ever talk to your children about what you're going through, or do you have more of a relationship with them now about the being open to talk about it? Like, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I would love to. And I'll write about this in my book. Excuse me. I never talked to my kids about it. We never mentioned the word suicide, ever. And so, poor things. I mean, my dad was actually watching my son the day that he took his life because the babysitter called in sick. So, I mean, poor kids, they're just like, oh, where's Papa? And now we're going to a funeral and Papa's no longer here. We never said anything. And I think my husband and I had kind of decided that we shouldn't say anything because we don't want them to think that is an option if things get hard or tough. But that is the absolute wrong thing to do, because it left them to create a story of their own, which could be even scarier. So now, yes, we talk about it. And of course, my kids are 25 and 22 now. And when I wrote this book, I had to talk to them about it. Like, are you okay with me writing this and getting this all out there? And they both have been so supportive. And, we talk about it openly now, but back then, and they were so young too, back then, that they wouldn't have known. But when my son got into high school, and it was when Robin Williams took his life, it was all over the TV. And he asked me, he was like, Mom, is that what Mama and Papa did? And I was like, what? How did you know? Kids know. Yeah. Either they hear a conversation when you think that they're not listening. And I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. It just caught me off guard so bad. And so I was like, yes, that is. And so we kind of had talked about it then, but only that opened the door for me to feel comfortable enough to talk about it. And I still was like, I don't know how you know. How did you know? We tried to keep it quiet for so long. But now we all talk about it. Thank goodness.
I think that's, I can remember when the day that Robin Williams passed away, or, and it was like, I think it's important, but I also understand, I understand entirely what you mean. Like when you don't want them to think it's an option, when you have people that you, like you said, the statistics are like 7 times more likely if it's happened. I have had an aunt who was successful in taking her life, and just recently in August, I had somebody very close. It's kind of like a stepdad to me, take his own life, and so it's like, wow, what were they going through? And then it's like you got to kind of talk about it, even though it's hard. And when people die from cancer, it's so different than when they die from this. And then you're like, what did I do wrong? How could I not help them? Why did I not see the signs and all the things? And I can relate to what you said. When somebody dies of a heart attack, you don't say, oh, I wish they would have, stopped smoking or stopped this or stopped that. And then it's the same thing. People, our lives can change when somebody dies in a car accident and all these other things. The thing that we all like, what I think is the hardest is that we just don't, when we have a loss of any kind, the thing is we do need to like not sit and push down the pain and I think that that's what you've been sharing with us too. It's so important too. Like you said, reach out to somebody about it. Write down your feelings. I love that. Ink it out. At first I thought tattoos and I'm like, did she get some tattoos?
No, I do have tattoos as well.
But I love that saying, like ink it out. That's such a good way of saying that. And then I think that what we need to do is just like you said, the reaching out, the writing it out, and then sitting with it. Like, how many times do we have a thought come up and then, like a memory or something of that loved one who has, and we're just like, oh, let me just push it aside because I don't want to deal with the hurt. Like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to go over something. Like when my great grandpa passed away from cancer, I can remember everything that happened that day and we didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about it. And I could tell you everything that happened. It's almost 40 years now, or not that long, 30 something years ago. And it's like, why don't we talk about death?
You just didn't talk about it. No death. You just didn't discuss it. Isn't it just bizarre?
Mm-hmm.
That back in that day, you just didn't. It didn't matter how they passed away. You just didn't discuss it.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy. And I don't know, maybe we do more now because I think there's more options, more podcasts, more ways to talk about it, more support groups for any kind of anything. And being around people that have been there, done that, and lost somebody. I mean, I know that there's, cancer support groups, there's pain support groups. And I love it because there wasn't those options back then.
I think what's important too is now that we have so many support groups, it's how do we advocate to let people know or where they're at or where they're at, what are the resources and how can they help each other? Because I just would wonder, I was just curious, a thought popped in my head. It's like, I wonder what is the search engines at night for people searching for these things that they need help for? And are they able to find the resources that they need? I think that that's important as well.
I think it is too, because I know when you search for things, it probably just pops up, symptoms, signs, symptoms, how do you treat it? I know, especially for like my pain, the chronic regional pain syndrome, I actually went to a conference in Dallas this last weekend and I was blown away that this doctor that talked about this condition, I didn't know any of that. And none of this was on the internet. It was just fascinating, but they did have a little pamphlet on how to start a support group. And, but the marketing of it, like, how do you get the word out there? Especially, I guess, locally, I guess you could do flyers and stuff like that, but that would be hard to search. But you're right. Now my wheels are turning too.
Well, and the thing that I know that one of the medications that you said for your pain, the gabapentin, that's one that I have been prescribed, and I know that I've taken it just a few handful of times on my last surgery that I had in May, and I felt like a zombie. Like I couldn't sleep. My husband's like, "Are you going to sleep?" All I did was sleep, and he's like, "Are you going to sleep all day? Or are you going to start moving?" The doctor said you need to start moving your body, and I'm like, I can't. Like I get up, I take it for the pain, and then I would go about, and I didn't even take the heavy pain stuff that they gave me. That was just the lowest one, and then I would go try to do a few things, and by an hour later, I'm sleeping for hours and hours. That was really hard, and I'm paying the price for it. And now I had gained so much weight, and I only took it for probably a period of 10 days.
Yeah.
But it's still the effects of it.
That did me the same way. It was awful. But yeah, I mean, I started to walk just slowly. I would do like 500 steps, 1,000 steps. My husband would laugh at me because I finally had desensitized my foot enough to put a shoe on, but it was a size too big. So I'm like a toddler walking in new shoes. I'm like, I'm walking. It was 500 steps, 1,000 steps. Now I walk about 5 miles a day. And does it hurt after? Yes. Does it hurt during? Not really. So I don't know if it's like releasing the endorphins, and so I'm not having the pain while I'm walking. it's afterwards that it is like a fire, like I'd stuck my foot in a hot coals. So yeah, now that's all I do is walk. I still can't, do my heavy workout. I did CrossFit for 11 years, and there's no way I could do CrossFit right now. No way. So I just start with the basics, and that's what I want to tell everybody too. You don't have to do CrossFit. You don't have to, deadlift and do heavy weights. Walk, 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 walk. Do little things to get you motivated. Get out and get your vitamin D, and sunshine is like medicine for the soul. And I don't guess it probably gets really cold where you are, but this morning it was 36 degrees. So our winter has hit.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I need some sunshine.
Yeah, we get about 20 degrees in the morning, but like when the sun comes up, like that's another thing too. Just like what you said about the vitamin D, the sun, like anybody can take it. Like there's got to be one period of time, but it's a little bit of sun. But you can just go out there, don't put, not even take your sunglasses, with you. Just sometimes you just need that. Close your eyes and just feel all of the sun in you. And my husband, that's what he would start to make me do. He's like, go outside, stand outside for five seconds or 5 minutes or whatever you can do. And I love that you said too about the walking, that even though you know that you're going to be in pain, that you still go and do 5 miles a day. Like, wow, that's awesome. You're like, I know I'm going to be in pain, but I'm still going to move my body.
I'm going to be in pain either way. I can sit there and pout about it, which I did for a long time, trust me, or I can walk and be in pain. You have to move your body, especially if you do have chronic pain. I know people kind of tend to just lay in the recliner and say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But, you have to push yourself, and you've got to move your body. So important, because you will get stiff. I know that at this conference this last weekend, that's what the doctor had harped on. Like, a lot of people don't want to, sometimes they have it in their hands or their elbows, and then, feet. And a lot of people won't walk on their foot, and then they get like the frozen knee because they don't move their knee, or the frozen elbow, or the frozen wrist. And then that's even harder to get moving after that. So it's been a journey. It has been a journey. And I'm so glad that I'm back on top. And I just let everybody know that you can rise back. I promise you. I mean, when you're at the bottom of the barrel, the only way to go is up, is what I always say. When you can't expect, you can't live in yesterday's storm and expect today's sun to feel warm. We have to get past that toxic place that we're sitting.
I think that's so important. And I love just how you said, like, it's not going to happen overnight, but you can, like you said, you started from 500 steps and then kept going and progressing and stuff. I also like, you said no matter what, you're still going to be in pain. And when and I've caught myself saying this, when I got restricted down to, can't lift 5 pounds right after I had my last surgery in May, I was like, okay, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, but what can I do? But it took me a little bit because one, the medication, and I'm like, I can't take this. It's too much. But then my husband would say, okay, you're just sitting on the computer, you're working. So I only took a total of 10 days, including the weekends off, when I was supposed to be out for 4 months, because I was like getting the part where I'm just sleeping. I'm like, I'm going to go back to work. So at least I'm getting up and doing something, but then I'm just sitting there on the computer, doing my job. And he was like, my husband was like, you got to get up, got to go outside. Your back's going to hurt. And slowly started doing the walking with the dogs, and just moving my body. And the hardest thing is we get so depressed when we don't move, right? We get depressed because our body changes when we're not exercising, we're not going outside. The weight's going to come on, and it gets us into a deeper depression. So we have to make those choices. And the thing is whether you think you can or can't, you're right. So you have to go out there and show that you can do things. Our brain is going to tell us you can't, our negative thoughts are going to say we can't do something. But just like show, like I always like to say, well, watch me,
Exactly. I like that. Hide and watch me. Yeah, it's the baby steps.
So with your the Rise Up method, do you coach people too, and how do you go through and help people, or what do you do with your Rise Up method?
Well, I'm going to hopefully start a coaching. I have to get through my book launch or my book right at the moment. So by the time, of course, this comes out, it'll already be launched. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, okay, a year ago, I never expected to write a book. I never expected to do any of this because technically I'm an accountant in my day job. So I'm still an accountant. I love it. But so that's what I do for my day job. But I would love to do some coaching. But I think volunteering for the Lost Team right now is my passion, my total passion. I love it, every part of my being. So hopefully I will get there to the coaching, speaking. I've done a few speaking gigs, which I love. I think my ultimate goal is to speak at the big Lost conference, that they have every year would be amazing. So yeah, just we'll see where this takes me.
Well, I think it's just amazing that, like just as you said, what a transformation can happen in a year. And it can be a negative or a positive, right? What can happen in a year. And you have turned one of, like you said, you had hit rock bottom. Now you're here a year later, you're sober, you got your book, all of the things, and you're now, you've been speaking. Have you just been speaking this last year as well? Yeah. What a transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I take that back. I spoke a couple of times at our local lost groups, but nothing like big stages. So yeah, it is a huge transformation. Nowhere I thought I'd ever be. So if I can do it, trust me, anybody can do it.
I love that. And how do you fit in? I mean, you work full time as an accountant. You're volunteering for this Lost Team. You're in this chronic pain, but you're still able to get 5 miles a day. And how do you manage to do all of that?
I get up in the morning and walk, and then I walk for at least a couple of hours in the evening. If not, I'll get on my rowing machine and I'll row because it gets cold now, and I'm like, I don't want to get outside. So I'll get on my rowing machine and row, and that's about how I get my 5 miles. But I guess that I don't like to sit still. That's probably one of my faults. So I go, and go and go and go. But this chronic pain has taught me to slow down a lot because I have to. And I think one of the major important things we have to do too is rest. That's how we reset our soul and reset our mind and reset our body. We have to rest. And I always thought rest was weakness, and it's not. Where did we even learn that?
I don't know, but
who taught us that?
The devil, because even God rested.
I mean, that has to be a generational something. Our parents worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked themselves to death. And then here we are, we see that and think, oh, we have to work ourselves to death and never rest and never take a break. And I don't know where we learned it.
Yeah, but I love that, and that's what's important. Like when I feel like there's a downtime or I need it, I think that when we rest, we actually it helps our body, like you said, reset, our whole mind, everything reset. And then your creativity or whatever you're wanting or creating or trying to accomplish just goes 10x because you've gotten yourself a chance to do that. And I think that's important. I just love all the things that you share. And as we wrap up, I would love to just, if you could tell my guests, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, so I have a website. It's risesavage.com. And then I'm on Instagram at Tiffaney Childers, and my name is TIFFANEYCHILDERS. There's an E in my name in Tiffany. It's weird. So you can reach me at that. You can find anything you want on my website, risesavage.com, and get in touch with me. I would love for you to follow me. And if you ever want to get in touch with me, please do.
And also,
boss and need to talk about it, I would love to talk to you.
Yes, for sure. And I will have those links in the show notes as well as the link to order your book because just the power that you have, just the transformation that you have taken, and that book has helped you with so many things to be who you are today. And I think that it could help all of others out there who may have lost people from suicide or even just to make awareness of it. I know for sure I'm really looking forward to reading it because there's a lot of mental health. Like I've had people attempted suicide. I actually, I did have people lost to suicide as well. Maybe not in my immediate family, but it's still something that we all should be aware of. I think it's
Almost
important.
everybody knows somebody that has taken their life, and it's unfortunate. It's a crisis. It's a
Yeah,
crisis.
I would agree with that. I belong to an organization that helps veterans get outside and move their
I
bodies.
love that. I love that.
And
In
what our
fact, I
mission?
was on a podcast, I think last Monday. It was a live podcast for a veteran in Dallas. He is with the VFW in Dallas, and it was so amazing to be on that podcast. So I love that you're in that organization. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that we can all help some, like these organizations and these foundations and all of the things out there. It's something that we all should actually step up and volunteer for, because you never know the people that you're going to connect, the people that you might find later on and meet in life who may need these resources. So I think that's a thing that I think is also very important. It's just as important as moving your bodies.
I agree. I love it.
As we wrap up, though, I always like to ask my guest, what is a word, a book, a phrase, or something that my people can do today? Maybe something they can read or do, or some type of action in order to help them refine and shine.
Share your story. Share your story, no matter how vulnerable it seems. Trust me, I've wanted to quit so many times at writing this book because I didn't want people to know anything. Share your story. You could be somebody's lifeline.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think that that's so important because, like we talked about earlier at the beginning of the podcast, so many times we don't talk about things, and we sweep things under the rug. We don't talk about the things, and the pain that we have been through is for a purpose, for some reason. We may not understand it all, but that's to help others as well. So,
Absolutely. Yep. Your darkest moments are your biggest transformations.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being an amazing guest today, and so excited about the book and all the things you have. And I cannot wait to see where you are 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.